This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. We are really excited about today. This is going to be a fun show. We have a Southern gal with us here, and someone who has just really been kicking it in real estate investing in a lot of different areas. Our guest today is Whitney Nicely. I think that's the right way to say it, yeah? Yep. Went from no investments or strategies to 19 houses, 19 apartment units, and 7 plots of land in less than 3 years, all bringing monthly money to her bank account on autopilot. She has traveled the United States, speaking on stages, teaching her simple strategies, and meeting with other successful real estate investors, and still buying houses the way she teaches others. Whitney is the principal broker for Whitney Buys Houses, LLC. Well, Whitney, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thanks for having me, Bill. This is going to be fun.
Well, you know, we're kind of giving you a pass here because I don't think you're really officially an old dog yet. So
that's what I was going to say. I'm still kind of a puppy over here, but I was raised by an old dog.
I know. Well, you know, they say young puppies can teach old dogs new tricks. So that's why you're on the show here. So.
Well, I hope so. I hope I can help somebody out there start investing or invest different.
Well, great. Well, we are always looking for unique, creative ideas, and it sounds like you got a lot of those. So, let's just tell us a little bit about your story, and we can detect you're from somewhere in the South. Maybe you can just tell us a little about where you're from and how you got involved in this crazy world of real estate investing.
Yeah, I can't deny my accent. I'm born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. I went to UTK, so go Vols. And I am fourth-generation entrepreneur. I was raised by real estate investors, and so I've been investing since I was really a pup. So I branched out on my own away from the family business in 2013. December of 2012, actually, I bought my first chunk of land, and that's when this whole snowball really got started. So,
and what was the family business?
We have a dump truck company. Our bucks come from trucks, and they have since 1939. So I was
seriously, wow, that's awesome.
And throughout, our history, there's always been, family tales. Some of them tall tales, but then there's deed to go along with it. So sometimes they're true and sometimes they may be a little bit elaborated, but I do come from a family of real estate investors. So I grew up the way a lot of people want their kids to grow up. Like, I always knew there was money in the mailbox at the first of the month. I didn't realize bills came in the mailbox until I was in my 20s. I thought everybody
you just thought
had
that
money.
just money
Yeah.
just came in through the mailbox.
Money happens. It just, I mean, mom would tell me to go get the money out of the mailbox and I'd go and get it. And I just thought everybody had money in the mailbox. I didn't know you needed a job.
That's so great.
And I will say that, my family company is my mom's company. My mom is the entrepreneur, the go-getter in the family. She's more introverted than I am, but it is her family line that I get this stuff from.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow. That's well, you just decided to buy a chunk of land? I mean, just out of nowhere, just for the heck of it?
I remember being in middle school and mom and dad or, papa, somebody taking me to real estate auctions on Saturdays when everybody else was staying home and watching cartoons. We were out buying stuff or buying cars or buying trucks or buying houses at real estate auctions. I just always remember being around real estate auctions. And I got a real estate license because my mom bought a property off the MLS. Only time she ever did it. And I saw how much that agent made. And I was like, well, hold on. Anybody's going to make that much money off my mom, I'm going to go get a license, right? So I went and got a license, and then it was a quick little step into, well, I should do real estate auctions. We love going to real estate auctions. I could just do that. So then I went and got a real estate license. And in Tennessee, to get your full broker's license for real estate and to get your full auctioneer's license, you have to be an apprentice. You have to work under a broker and under an auctioneer. So I was lucky enough to get into a family company, another family company. We were the buyers at this other family's auction house. So they agreed to sponsor me to get my license. And I was just hanging out at a Saturday sale trying to get my hours in to get my broker's license and to get my auctioneer's license. And it ended up being I only went to real estate auctions and to get my time in. It ended up being a foreclosure auction, and there was 90 properties that Saturday, first Saturday in December 2012. And we had 90 properties, and there was a lot of land, a couple houses, but nothing really special. And we got all the way, it was A through Z of the counties in East Tennessee. And we got all the way to the L counties before I started paying attention and realizing that these people were buying this land for $500, $700, $1,000, maybe $2,000. But it wasn't that they were spending a whole bunch of money to buy this stuff. And they were getting it free and clear, not a tax sale, not anything. They were just getting the deed that day. So I saw another auctioneer, apprentice auctioneer. We were in an M county. I didn't even know where we were, and I didn't know where that county was in Tennessee. But I went over to him. I was like, what's going on? What's with this land? And he said, just buy the next lot. And I was like, what? No, I can't just. And he was like, raise your hand. So I raised my hand. And I tell you, that was the most fun 4 minutes of my life. After it was all over, I blacked out. I don't know. I know I won. I know I called timeout at some point just to make sure I knew what I was bidding on and how much I was bidding. And I ended up buying 1.07 acres in a failed subdivision in Decatur, Tennessee. I bought lot number 12. And with lot number 12, the first 20 lots that got sold originally when the subdivision was developed, the first 20 lots got a deeded boat slip, because this subdivision was on the river. And even though my lot wasn't on the river, I did get a boat slip in the marina, and I ended up paying $1,200 for an acre of land. And
unbelievable.
I had no idea where this was. It was in Decatur. I thought Decatur was in Georgia. I didn't even know we had one in Tennessee. I mean, I was completely clueless when I bought my first piece, but I had $1,200 and I was going to buy something. So I did. And looking back on it now, I just wish I bought everything in that subdivision.
Really? Turned out to be a good investment, huh?
Yeah, I found out that my lot has neighbors, right? One in the back and two on each side. And the one to the left of me, they paid like $40,000. The one to the right of me paid $50,000, and the one behind me paid like $65,000. And all of them paid cash.
Wow. And were they all 1 acre lots?
Yeah, everything in the subdivision is an acre lot, and the HOA restrictions say you can't build anything less than a $250,000 house, which in East Tennessee is a big old honking house.
Mm-hmm. I bet. Wow. What happened with the land? Did you ever build a house on it, or did you just sell it?
I drove down there that day to see what I bought, and then I drove down with my mom and my dad and my boyfriend at the time, and I haven't seen it since then, December 2012. I've got it. I tell that story all the time. I love that story. And as far as I'm concerned, that was a good lesson in the school of hard knocks.
Wow.
I went through closing. I didn't even have my checkbook with me. I didn't know I had to pay 10% buyer's premium. Like, there's so many things you just don't know until you go through it. And I figured $1,200 was a good tuition.
Wow. Oh, that's got to be worth something now, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. And now, I do weird real estate, creative financing and stuff. And so I could owner finance that lot for $20,000, let somebody else build a house on it, and I'd take second mortgage position, or there's lots of things I could do. I even sent out yellow letters to all my neighbors and said, hey, I'll buy your property or you can buy mine. And they all told me how much they paid for it, and I was like, yeah, well, I gave $1,200. And they were like, well, I'll give you $1,200. I was like, no way. But if it's 20, then you can have my lot. And they were like, nah, it's cool. And I was like, well, I'm sure not going to give you $40,000 for yours. No way. I just want it.
God, that's great. Now, you got an auctioneer's license. Did you ever actually run an auction?
Oh, yeah. I've done one a year for the last 3 years. So I've done 3. I'm not exactly knocking it out of the ballpark, but I keep my license active.
Well, you talk pretty fast. I could kind of see you going, and I have 50, I have.
Well, the thing about, and I'm sure you and the other old dogs know that when you go to a real estate auction, it's not really about how fast you can go, but it's how many jokes you can tell. And how you can entertain the audience. And, I'm pretty good with old dogs and, making them laugh and keeping them entertained and getting their bids up. So I'm a pretty good real estate auctioneer.
God, that's great. Now, this is not something you have like on the courthouse steps type auction, is it? Or
No. I don't actually like the F word, the foreclosure word.
Right.
I try to stay away from it. The only time that no, that's a lie. I've done 2 different foreclosure sales. One was that land that I bought, and another time my mom bought a house out of foreclosure, and it was a disaster. And just the paperwork involved in that kind of crap is not worth it. So I really like free and clear properties, whether I'm going to be buying them and getting owner financing, or whether I'm going to be auctioning them just to see, an absolute auction, how much we can make. I really don't like the courthouse steps stuff.
Do you still buy properties and, whether they have houses on them or not, through auctions?
Yeah, I've been bidding on one today. Actually, I have been bidding on an online auction for the last week, and it ended today. I didn't win, but it was 2.3 acres in the city of Knoxville, and it used to be a mobile home park. And I don't know about where you are, but you can't just decide something's going to be a mobile home park anymore. You have to buy and inherit a license for a mobile home park. So I bid up to $10,000 today, and it sold for $13,000.
Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah, I was recently bidding also bid for assets. Are you familiar with bid for, yeah, there were 2 lots next to each other in the mountains above Southern California here. I said, well, if I can get it, because I wasn't really able to inspect. I did all the research and due diligence I could do, but I just didn't get to go there. So I said, look, I'll max out at like $400 on this thing.
Yeah.
And, it went like $450, and I was so upset because I would have gone $450. I probably would have gone $1,000, but I didn't know enough about it to feel real confident about it. But yeah, I love the auctions. I haven't done a lot of them, but I really I'd like to do a whole podcast just on auctions. And maybe that's a reason to get you back here. So
I'm in, especially if you want to talk about land at auctions, because I think that's the only way to buy land is at auction. Other times, I just don't know how anybody makes any money buying any land.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, land. They're giving it away in auctions.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't know how you can check out all the land because they're all over the place. It'd have to be something in your neighborhood, I guess, or area where you could check it out. But so you make sure you're not buying some toxic dump or something.
Well, whoopsie. I did one time.
No.
This is why I don't like the courthouse steps auction. I was on a roll. I was going to auctions. I was doing online auctions. I was buying up every little piece I could find. And I bought a half-acre piece of industrial land in the city of Knoxville, right smack dab in the middle of my honey hole. And I ended up renting it. I paid $1,500 for this half acre. I rented the driveway for $250 a month. So, 6 months, I've got my money back. And so I was just buying up everything. Well, I went to a tax sale, and I'm not dyslexic, but sometimes I make mistakes. I know that's probably hard to believe. And when I was looking up the property that I wanted to buy, I moved a 1 for a 7 or a 7 to a 1 or something. Anyway, I ended up buying 3 acres under the lake. Like no grass, no trees, no buildable lot. Can't even get a dock permit because there's nowhere to tie up.
Wow. Well, I've got some Florida swampland I could sell to you.
We had some of that. We got it back in like the 60s or 70s, because my family's been doing this for a while. So we got some swampland too. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
We traded it for a load of gravel.
Wow. Well, I mean, going from auctions, getting this piece of land, which sounds like it was a great investment, into you're in a lot of different areas. You've got single family homes, you've got multifamily apartments. How did you kind of move in those other directions?
Well, I was buying all the land and I was kind of running out of money and I was renting some stuff, but $250 a month's not enough to like set anybody's pants on fire. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to make $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month. And I was like, well, I'll just go buy a house. I got a little bit of money left in my life savings. So I'll go buy a house. So I went to an auction, bought a house, $30,000, and started renting it for $800 a month. And I was like, hot dog, we're in business now. And then I was like, wait a second, how long is it going to take me to get all this money back? Oh, man, I'm not going to be able to buy anything. And then I was like, I've got another house I want to buy. What am I going to do? Oh, my brother's got money. I'll just go get his money. So I went and borrowed my brother's money very forcefully and told him that we were going into business. We were going to buy houses. We were going to be real estate investors. So I took all of his money and bought another house. And then we were both slap dab out of money, not bringing in enough that we could, buy anything. We had 2 houses, 3 or 4 chunks of land. And I was like, there's got to be another way to buy more without having to use our money. There's got to be a way to do this. And so as luck would have it, my broker told me to go to a real estate investors association meeting. And that night they were promoting a class on lease options. And I remember the president of the RIA coming up to me and he was like, Whitney, I really want you to go to this lease option thing that we're doing. I think you're going to like it. And I was like, dude, I just spent like my last dime on these 2 stupid houses and I don't have $75 to go to another class. And he said, if you go and you don't like it, I'll give you your $75 back. I thought, all right, old man, I can do that. So I went, and like 15 minutes later, I was completely in love with lease options. The guy that was leading the class was also an investor in Knoxville. And he was showing how he's making $20,000 and $50,000 and $75,000 and not having any of his own money, no credit, no banks, nothing involved in this. He was just, making money left and right. And I was like, I'm in. Who taught you this? How can I learn more? And that night I put $3,000 down on a credit card and hauled tail to Jacksonville, Florida to figure out really how to do owner financing and lease options. So
my goodness,
it was, I was up against a wall. I had more stuff to buy. I had way too much gumption maybe. And I didn't know that I should be scared that I was going to lose everything until I realized how much I could gain. And once I realized that I could go buy these houses and do these deals without having any money, I was in. And so I had those 2 houses. The next year I did 14 deals.
Wow. Okay. So the 2 houses, you were renting those out?
Well, one of them ended up sliding down a mountain and we had to get that fixed.
Okay.
And the other one, I did start renting it out and they moved out just as I was really getting good at lease options. They moved out. So we put tenant buyers in that property. So it all works out perfectly. God's timing is perfectly. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But as of right now, I've got all my money back out of that first house that I bought. We're still working on getting my brother's money, though.
Was that the one that slid down the hill?
Yeah, his was the slider.
and how does a house happen to slide down a hill? Was it like flooding or something?
It was built on top of a hill. And this house also, when I bought it, this is how clueless I was when I first started. I'm just young and dumb and out here trying to figure out what's going on. No plans, no strategies, nothing. So we met the heirs of this state that, got this house, and they were showing us around and it stunk. And I'd never really been in a gross house like this. And so I didn't really want to see the basement. But they convinced me to go down the basement. As soon as we got down there, my brother shined his flashlight right at my feet. There was a snake skin. And I was like, you know what? I'm gone. Bye. So I didn't look around, because if I had looked around, you would have been able to see that there was daylight coming into the basement from the crack in the wall on the back side of the house. If I'd done an inspection on the house, which I didn't do because I was, young and brash and knew everything already, I would have found out that it didn't have a heat and air unit.
Oh, gosh.
No AC at all. And I didn't realize houses came without AC units because, I mean, I'm a millennial. Who would buy a house without an AC unit? Well, I did. So that house had all sorts of problems, cast iron pipes, no AC. The electrical hadn't been updated since like the 70s. I mean, it was a disaster. We pretty much gutted the whole thing and rebuilt it. And so it took us like 18 months because we had to use all of our paychecks, all of everything I was getting on my option fees went straight into redoing that house. So it took us forever. We were eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner at mom's and not vacationing, not doing anything, just so we could finally get this house done and making some money. And it's going to come out. We're going to make, 50 or 75,000 on it by the time it's all done. But it was definitely a real lesson in what you want to look for when you're buying houses. It was an eye-opening experience. And, for my mom to be so nice and kind and to, raise us so well, she could have said, "Hey, idiot, this thing doesn't have an air conditioning unit." But no. My mom is from the old school, and she was like, "Figure it out."
There you
Thanks.
go. That's how you probably learned what you learned, huh?
Thanks. Yeah, because she could have easily talked me out of it. The worst thing on that house was we got to closing, and I shook the seller's hand. It was the lady that inherited her husband who was doing most of the work because it was FSBO, and he was showing us, and I was talking to him, and blah, blah, blah. He shook my hand and kind of laughed at me, and he was like, "I'm so glad you got this house. You offered way more than anybody else did on it." Ah, crap.
You learned a lot of lessons in that, it sounds like. Well, what would you say? I mean, in your course of lease options, buying raw land, and getting into multifamily here, what would you say your biggest mistake was? Was that the house? Was that the mistake?
No. I had another house that was even worse. So
no.
It was an auction. I'm a sucker for auctions, man. So it was in an area of town that I'd never been to. And I thought, oh, well, what a fun way to experience a different part of town. Wrong. So I bought the house at auction. We paid $15,000 for it. By the time it was all done, we paid $15,000 for it. And my brother and I were so excited. We got the keys. We went over and looked at it. And the first thing that happened is we were attacked by fleas. The second thing that happened, we started walking across the carpet, and you could see just the water squishing out of the carpet. Third thing that happened is I got spooked over there one day by myself. The house to the left of our house had a bunch of traffic coming and going, people in and out, just people. I mean, it was like a beehive over there, just people in and out. And I was like, what in the world are they doing? And then I got to smelling it. And I had one of our buddies who was an officer come by. So he could smell it, and he's a specially trained, like, narcotics officer, drug officer, I don't really know. And he was like, "Don't you ever come over here again. Definitely not by yourself. I know these people, and I know what that smell is." And I was like, okay, so we're going to sell it. Okay. So we had another incident over at that house. We were trying to get it cleaned up, and I had our yard guys over there, and they called me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to have to hire somebody to come over here and watch the trailer. Somebody's tried to steal a chainsaw while we were cutting down a tree." And I was like, "Oh, I'll come over there and watch the trailer." And I was like, wait a second. What would I do if somebody tried to steal a chainsaw off the trailer while they're cutting down a tree in the front yard?
Oh, geez.
This is just not where I need to be. So we sold it at auction for $11,000. And that's the only deal that I've lost money on so far, knock on wood. And I was just glad that I didn't get, raped or mugged or kidnapped over at that house. So,
oh, man. Yeah, I mean, that's
$4,000, my life, totally worked out.
Wow. You had to sell something like that, crack house special,
Man. I bought 3 crack houses this year. I love crack houses. And to me, and I'm sure to you also, but I bought 3 houses this year. I paid $2,500 for one. I paid $3,000 for another, and I paid $5,500 for the third one. Okay. So I got 3 houses, total of like $12,000 after we do closing costs and everything. And I sold the first one for $12,000. So I'm in the money on the other 2. And I've got lease options on all of them. So I'm making like $900 a month for the next 3 or 4 years. And these people are going to end up buying the houses from me. And I didn't touch them. I didn't go in them. But to me, a crack house is if you get in to look at these houses, because I didn't go in any of them before I bought them, but you could see outside through the cracks and the holes and the ceiling. And it's like an egg. It's just cracked.
Oh man. Okay, so when you say cracked house, you don't mean crack, like drug house, right?
No, druggies.
Okay.
The house.
Okay,
Like, hey,
literally
Humpty Dumpty
cracked.
fell into my house.
Okay. Now I get it. Okay.
I
How
love those little dinky houses, though.
funny.
And I mean, I'm buying houses for less than I can buy purses for. It's so much
What's
fun.
the cheapest house you ever bought?
At $2,500. What was cool about it is I had that house under contract for $6,000 on owner financing for like 2 or 3 years. I was going to give the seller like $200 a month, and the neighbor called, and I had it under contract for $6,000. I was trying to sell it for $12,000. And I was going to get $300 a month, depending on how much you could give me to move in. Well, the neighbors next door called, and they're like, hey, we got $5,000 we'll give you, and then we'll pay you $300 a month for the next couple years until we give you $12,000. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah. So I called my seller and I was like, hey, instead of giving you $6,000 over the next 2 or 3 years, what would you take in cash? And he was like, $2,500.
I mean, that's amazing. $2,500 for a house. I mean, and I mean, such a great return on it. Now, did you buy all of your homes on auction without inspecting them? I mean, you just
No, I've actually kind of quit doing that. Now I do more lease options and owner financing. And, most of the time, I mean, I'll buy regular houses too, $100,000, maybe $120,000 houses, which in Knoxville is very normal. Our market kind of takes a nosedive at 150, maybe 160. So anything between 100 and 150 is really my sweet spot. But, just talking little dinky deals, that $2,500 deal, I'll do cash for that. Even the $3,000 or a $5,500 deal, I'll pay cash for that. It's not really worth getting creative financing on that stuff when you just pay for it and go on with your business.
Now, are these like houses located in the hood? I mean, are they all in really tough neighborhoods, or does it range?
The little dinky deals, my little sad houses, are on the outskirts of, a bad part of town. And it's not really bad. It's just lower income.
Okay. Just a low rent area or, okay. Gotcha.
But there's plenty of good people with solid jobs and have real hands-on skills that live in those areas, and they have crappy credit. They do, buy here, pay here car loans. And so when I offer lease options in those areas, I mean, I'll get 4 or 5 different people ready to move in, because that's the only way they're going to ever be able to get out of renting a house and that rat race of renting and get into actually owning a house. And a lot of these people come from generations of renters. And to be able to get out and break that cycle and come into even just, a little dinky house, if it needs a lot of work, they would rather take that on and have the pride of ownership, whatever the house needs, because, they've got a buddy that does this and a buddy that does that, and they kind of do this, and they'll have it fixed up and worth, as much as it can be. And I like to be able to feel like I'm giving those people a chance.
That's neat. Now, what percentage of the people that get into lease options with you actually end up owning the houses?
About 1%.
Really? Only 1% actually end up owning the house?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Is that because they move out, or they stop their payments, they get evicted? I mean, what happens? That's a very low percentage.
I've done 57 deals, creative financing deals, in the last 3 years, and I've only had one guy get a mortgage.
Wow.
And it was my very first owner financing deal. I had a really sweet setup for like 10 years. I knew, I'd already calculated I was going to make like $300,000 on this $100,000 house, because I had plenty of time to get 2 or 3 or 8 different tenant buyers through, giving me $10,000 or $15,000 every time somebody came in. And, I was making $300 or $400 a month. And I'll be doggone if the first guy that moved in didn't go get a mortgage in 15 months. I only made like $22,000 on it.
Wow.
But $22,000 on a $100,000 house is a lot better than if I'd listed it.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
So I still make good money, and that's the only one that I've had actually cash me out. Everybody else just gets distracted and goes on about life. I'll tell you, I had on the same street that I did that one deal, I've got another house that I swear is cursed. I've had 2 different people come and go through it. The first people I actually had to evict because they didn't make their payment for 2 months. They gave me $5,000 to move in, didn't make their payment for 2 months after they'd only been there for 6 months. So I still had their money that I could use to make the payment. I still didn't have to come out of pocket. But when they left, they were just nasty people. So we ended up putting a kitchen in, putting a bathroom in. Probably should have done it the first time before they moved in anyway. But I spent about $10,000, and within 2 weeks after getting the job done, I had somebody give me $15,000 to move in. So I made $5,000. Okay. That was in January of 2017. They gave me $15,000 to move in. I'd flipped it in December, early January. They got married one weekend in January, gave me $15,000 another weekend in January, and the first weekend in February, they moved in. Well, by July 4th, they made that payment and then got divorced.
Wow.
So they didn't make August's payment. So 1st of September, they were out of the house. And today is towards the end of September. I have a contract pending with somebody who's pre-approved with a mortgage to buy it.
Really? So you're just unloading it at this point?
Yeah, 3 strikes and I'm out.
Wow.
The thing is, my option expires next year anyway, so it would be a blessing just to have somebody go ahead and cash me out. I think I owe $95 on it, and I've got it listed at $121, so I'll make $20,000 there.
Great, that's great.
It's also better than if I'd listed it.
So what would you say is your biggest success then in all of your real estate dealings?
One of my very favorite deals was a house in Dandridge, Tennessee, and I had originally picked looking in Dandridge because it's on the lake and it's beautiful and I wanted to live there. And so I just started going around trying to buy houses while I was looking for my own. And that's what I tell sellers is I'm trying to move up here. I don't think I would like this house for, whatever reason because it's not on the lake, but other people would. So the first house that I ever had a lease option on was in Dandridge, and I got it. The people owed $121 on it, and I put it up on Zillow for $145. They had already had it on Zillow for $135. So when I put it up the next day at $145, I had a couple out of Chicago that called me, and they were like, "Hey, we want it, but we saw it for $135, and we'll give you $135 for it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll take it." I said, "But, I want you to come down and look at it." They said, "No problem." So they showed up later that week from Chicago, and they were like, "Okay, we love it, but we've got a house in Chicago that we've got to sell before we can move into this one." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's kind of normal." I said, "Well, I've, luckily got this lease option on it. And what I can do is give you the lease option for about a year, and you can rent it. You can live here. You can do whatever. And, surely your house in Chicago will sell in the next year." And they were like, "Yeah, totally." So I'd gotten my contract February 28th. I met them like March 15th because it took a week for my people to get out. So they started renting the house for $1,000 a month on March 15th. And they paid a month from the 15th to the 15th. So they paid 2 months rent in advance. They paid March to April and April to May. My first payment wasn't due for 90 days. So my first payment on this deal wasn't due until the 1st of June. So I was tickled because I knew somebody was going to have this payment made for me. I was so excited. They called me the next day and said, "Hey, we got a contract on our house. It's going to sell the 1st of May. And I was like, "Yeah, well, you still have to go through financing. You still have to go through inspections and this and that and the other. If it doesn't, it's fine. We'll just keep the lease option in place." And they're like, "All right, fine." So they called, and sure enough, their house sold in Chicago the 1st of May. They cashed out. They came down on May the 13th. I printed my check out from this first closing. Mm-hmm. They came down and cashed me out, and I made the difference of what those people owed of like $121 and what the Chicago people were buying it from me of $135. And there was some taxes, and I paid some closing costs and some things. But I got a check that day, May 13th, for $13,000. Plus, I'd made $2,000 because I'd charged them $1,000 each month in rent, and I didn't have a payment going out. So I made $15,000 on a house that I didn't own. I didn't have any money involved in it. I had $10. I had a $10 check as vested interest in it, but no real money. And in like 8 weeks, I made $15,000.
Wow.
And that was my very first lease option. And I was like, "All right, I'm in. Let's do this."
Now looking at what you do, and you've, as I mentioned in your intro, you have 19 houses. Now those buy and hold type houses, you're just renting those out?
No, they're mostly lease options. I've got most
Oh,
of
they're
them
lease options. Okay.
as
Gotcha.
lease options. And, I've got those 3 little crack houses. I've got some other houses that I paid cash for. I think I have 5 that I have free, no, 6 that I have free and clear.
Okay.
The others, I have them under a lease option. So it's a sandwich lease option. I bought it under lease option and I've sold it under a lease option. I did one deal and I had it under lease option. I think I gave like $80,000 for it, and I was paying like $400 a month or something. I had a lady that was moving to Tennessee from Indiana, and she gave me $40,000 to move into this house and paid me 6 months rent in advance. And then on the 7th month, she sent me a text. She was like, hey, I didn't get a job, so I can't pay rent this month. And I was like, well, what are you going to do? I need rent. You only paid 6 months in advance. And she was like, well, my sister just got a house in South Carolina, so I'm thinking about moving there with her.
So, oh my goodness. So you had all of it. You had her down payment. You had everything. Wow. And then she just walked away.
She left, and that was the 7th month. So in the 8th month, I got somebody else to give me $10,000, and they started paying me $750 a month. And they've already left too. I've already made $50,000 on an $80,000 house.
Wow. That's
plus income,
crazy.
monthly income, and I love this stuff. And I do all of this off market without my license, and I just get out and start making some offers.
Man,
I love it.
Now, is the lease option part of what you do the most lucrative for you?
Yeah, because I get those non-refundable option fees. Now, $40,000 is the most I've ever gotten as a non-refundable option fee. But I mean, I very regularly get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and then people leave in a year. I've only had to evict one person. Most people just send me a text and they're like, hey, we got transferred. We're going to Oklahoma. Or, hey, we got divorced. We're going separate ways.
Now, do they come to you and ask for the money back?
No, because I make them agree and sign an initial like 14 different times that they ain't getting their money back.
Right. That's real clear. Yeah.
That's mine.
Wow. Now, you've ventured into multifamily as well.
Oh, I love, yes.
Yeah. And talk about that just if you might for a couple minutes here.
So I mentioned my boyfriend, and he was not very excited about real estate investing. He's very black and white and by the books and straight and narrow, and he's very corporate, and he's kind of boring. But he wasn't on the real estate train with me, and I was full-fledged, like guns a-blazing at it. And I did about 6 house deals before he was like, I think you're onto something. But then I was on like my 10th house deal, and he still was giving me, well, this won't last. This won't be good. I'd already made like $100,000 on all these deals. And I was like, how can you say this isn't going to work and I'm not going to be good at this? I've made $100,000 in like 7 months doing these deals. And I was like, you know what? You're just going to have to either get into real estate or leave. We broke up in a Krispy Kreme parking lot. I was on my way to an open house.
And give me my donuts back.
That's right. I need something sweet. And, also I was young and just, I say whatever I want to. And I didn't give him an ultimatum, but I definitely sent him back to Georgia that weekend, and I went and did my real estate thing. And so when we got back together, that was the deal, is you're going to get into real estate. You're going to go to some of these seminars and boot camps and things with me, or this isn't going to happen. So he was a really good sport. He went to some of the house stuff with me. He learned about lease options. He went on some of my deals. He started helping me answer the phone, all that stuff. But he was like, I just don't like it. Like, it's just, eh. And I said, well, you know what? I've done 14 of these now. I'm getting kind of antsy. Let's see about apartments. And he said, okay, yeah. So we signed up and we went to apartment school. And at apartment school, I got a call that weekend, some apartments that I'd checked on earlier in the year before I had any idea what I was doing. They were going to have a reduction on Monday. So we used these 2 deals in apartment class, and everybody in the whole class was drooling over these deals that I had. I didn't even have them under contract, but just that I had access to them, everybody wanted to partner with us on it. And the cash on cash, the ROI, everything was just amazing. And the class pretty much talked us into, and the teacher helped kind of push us into doing this deal. And we got out of apartment school on Sunday. By Wednesday, we were under contract with those 2 units. And then by like the next Wednesday, we had another unit under contract. So we busted out of apartment school with 3 deals under contract or LOI'd in like 10 days.
Wow.
And the apartment thing, that's our thing together. And he loves it. He loves to talk multifamily and all that stuff. But the first 2 units that we got were in foreclosure, but they were in Tennessee. The MLS is kind of weird. Like in Georgia, there's only 2 MLSs. You're either in one or you're in the other. In Tennessee, like every county or 3 has their own MLS, and they don't communicate. So these were listed in kind of like a weird, out of the way MLS that didn't have a lot of investor activity in it. And I just happened to drive by. It was close to my mom's truck shop, called the agent, and found it. So those were technically on market, but they weren't like on LoopNet or properly advertised for where they should have been and the activity that they should have gotten. We were the only game in town bidding on them. They're the only apartments in this zip code.
Wow. Now, have you found that to be, I mean, that's definitely very different from what you're doing with the lease options. It's a lot more passive. I mean, you basically just have to keep tenants and manage the properties.
And we inherited a lot of the tenants that we still have.
Wow, that's great. So is that, I mean, do you see yourself doing more of that, getting more involved with that?
We would love to. We are also very self-funded. We don't do private money. We don't raise capital. We don't do any of that. So what we did is we took one of the houses that I had free and clear, and we pulled a home equity line of credit on it. So I had it, and I'd used a lot of my option fees, $10,000 or $15,000, and I'd put it towards that house and paid it off. So it was a $150,000 house, and we pulled $100,000 line of credit on it and used that $100,000 as our down payment on all 3 of our commercial properties. So we're still in these properties with none of our own money involved.
Okay, that's great. That's a great way to do it. Wow. Well, our listeners, as you know, I mean, they're 50-plussers. Some of them are approaching retirement. Some are already retired. And, a lot of these people have already, sort of worked. They've done their careers. They're moving toward retirement, or they're already retired. And, with your experience in the areas that you've been in, what do you think would be the best way for them to go and get started in real estate investing, where it's not going to be like a full-time job?
I would really encourage that multifamily property, because like those 2 properties that we have, they're really close together. We kind of consider them just one big lump of a property, and we have a property manager. So we seriously get no calls. We get no headaches. We get a check every month, and we use part of it to pay off our mortgage. We use part of it to pay off the line of credit, and the rest of it we stick in our pocket.
Wow, that's great. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Income, or if we wanted to, we could double down and pay off one, and then use that to pay off the rest of it, and then really be cash flowing, which is the name of the game, or save up some more so we could go buy some more properties, or whatever. But I would, like, my mom has 7 houses, and she likes to buy $30,000 or $40,000, maybe $50,000 houses, and then just rent them forever. So she's got 7 of them paying her $800 or $1,000 or $1,200 a month, and that's a pretty good retirement income.
Oh yeah.
It refreshes itself every single month, and that's a good retirement income. My mom still works, but if you can do that, especially if you've got 30 or 40,000 and you could put it into a multifamily property that's going to bring you 4 or 5 or 6,000 a month, the money is just so much better. Otherwise, I would encourage people in that bracket to buy notes, to buy mortgages, to be the bank instead of the landlord, and let somebody who may be a little bit more springy go around and do some of the grunt work, and you just hold the note.
Right. Well, what did you, if you don't mind saying, what did you pay for the multis that you had?
One is 11 units, and it breaks down to a 4, a 6, and a house. We gave $225 for that one. We have a 5 unit that we gave $125, and then we've got a triplex 3 unit. We gave $89,000 for it. And our triplex we actually found on Craigslist. It was a FSBO, and we offered owner finance deal on it, but they just wanted to be cashed out and done with it. And when we bought it, they were renting each unit for $450, and I've got them up to $550 per unit now.
What are you pulling in on your cash flow at each month on those?
On the big one, I got to tell you, Jason monitors the big ones, and I take care of the triplex. Landmark is the big one, and it brought in $7,000, $47,000 and $2,500. I don't know why it's broken down like that.
And now you're saying cash flow or gross?
That was gross.
That's gross. Okay. So after expenses, do you know roughly what you'd be left with?
4,700.
4,700. Okay, got it. That's pretty good. And then plus you've got a five unit and a 3 unit.
And it looks like we had a septic tank clean out of $700 this month.
Right. So for roughly 440,000, somewhere around there, you've got just on one part of that 11 units, you're getting 4,700 a month, and then you've got your 5 unit and your 3 unit income. So I mean, I would think you're probably well over 5,000 on your cash flow. Maybe 6. Depending on what your expenses are for those properties, but that seems like a real nice deal.
I think it's amazing. It's a whole lot better than when I get on my houses.
Now, you only buy properties that are near you, is that correct?
I do. I still like to be able to drive by. I still like to be able to send my guys out, or if it came down to it and I had to manage them, I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the benefits of investing, really far away. Nobody knows who you are, where you're from, and all that stuff. I understand the benefits of having private money lenders and having other people come in and, spread out the risk. I understand all of that. But I'm also selfish and a little bit of a control freak. So I like to keep it all close to home.
That's good. That's smart. I recommend to anybody, if you can get those kind of deals in your area, I wouldn't see any reason to go out of state. That's for sure.
The prices I bought, even the big unit, $225 for that. The most expensive house I ever bought was $225, and it only brought in $1,000. This one brings in like $7,500.
That's great.
So just that in itself. On the 5 unit, we paid $125 for it, and it brings in $2,500 a month. If I bought a $125,000 house, it'd probably bring me $800, maybe $900 a month. The money is just so much better, and it's just so much easier to be hands off in the money.
Yeah. You got to have a property manager. I mean, that's otherwise it's you're getting all those calls in the middle of the night and having to deal with that. But that's great.
I don't have many issues because I self-manage those. The worst thing is, I give my tenants my handy guy's number, and he's going to go fix it anyway. So he'll just text me and be like, hey, 2016 texted me last night. I'm going to go up here and fix a window. All right, cool. Go.
Great.
So he gets those. I got to pass that off. And I guess maybe I pay him an extra $10 when he goes to do it or something.
Well, Whitney, you've got a lot going on here. I mean, it's exciting. Not only are you managing your properties, but you're also educating people too. And you didn't talk much on that, but I just kind of want to ask you, what's ahead for your business? Where do you see things going?
I want 100 doors. I want 100 properties paying me every single month. And then I'd like to roll that into 100 free and clear properties paying me every single month, so that I'll be looking at $100,000 a month.
That's great. And your goal is to really pay off all your properties as quickly as you can, I assume.
Yes. And honestly, that's why I coach. I coach for 2 different reasons. One is because I love nerding out on real estate, and I love being able to help newbies, because I've only been doing this 3 years. I've done a lot in 3 years, but amazing. I still remember. I still go into sellers' kitchens. I still know what it feels like to be nervous. I still know what it's, well, how do I start this, and how do I do that, and how do I actually get this? And I remember being really fresh and a newbie. And so I can relate to newbies very well. And so I like helping them. I like really helping them get that first deal done, because after that first one, you and I know the 3rd one's easier, the 13th one's easier, the 24th is a lot easier, but you have to do that first one.
Yeah, that's where your real education starts, I believe. Is you can go to all the training and all the courses you want, but I think really education really starts after you sign those escrow papers on your first deal.
Exactly. And I like to be there and kind of, hold their hand, kind of prod them along, give them a little push when they need it. And I like to be that first call that they get before they call their husband, before they call their wife, before they call their kids. They call me and they're, oh my God, they signed it. And oh my God, they're just so excited. I get so excited for them and just working with them through that. And even some of my students are in Knoxville.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's where I invest. But there's just so many opportunities for everybody. I get leads in Knoxville, and I know which student is trying to invest there, and I just send them the leads.
Oh, that's great.
And so I really enjoy that, but I also use the money that I get from coaching to pay off my property.
Well, that's smart. I mean, to own those free and clear, I mean, that's the best. That's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, there's advantages they have in mortgages, as far as deductions and
Yeah.
other things. But really, the bottom line is, if you can own them outright, it's going to be in a whole different ballpark. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, we're at a section here. We call it our wrap it up because otherwise I'd have you on the phone here for 4 hours. But so
I think we could hang for 4 hours.
I think we can actually. You've got a lot of great information. I think people are going to get a lot out of this. This is awesome. But this is an area where we ask really quick questions about just resources and so forth that can help our listeners. That's what we call our wrap it up session. So are you ready to wrap it up?
All righty, let's do it.
All right. Favorite real estate book?
The Cash Flow Quadrant. Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant.
Great.
Oh, no, wait. Let me take that back. Everybody answers that. Okay, so there's this book called Miracle in the Mountains. It's about Martha Berry. And Berry College is the largest land-sized campus in the world. And it's in the hills of northwest Georgia, in Rome, Georgia. That's where my husband lives. And she is she owned more land than any other woman, and then turned it into a university. She bought land through the early 1900s up to 1950 or 1960s. And that is the most amazing book of a determined woman who completely flew under the radar, hung out with all the big guys, the presidents, Henry Ford, like all these big cool dudes hanging out at Martha Berry's place. But she didn't hit any of the history books, and she is amazing.
What a neat book. That's great. You got me going. I want to read it.
Miracle
great.
in the Mountains. And now actually Chick-fil-A owns part of Berry campus.
Oh, interesting.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. I absolutely adore Martha Berry.
Great book. All right. How about your favorite business book?
Oh, dang, I should have that one. No, how about Salvador Ferragamo? The Shoemaker's Dream, the Dream Makers of Shoes. I can't think of the name of it. I've got it over there. But Ferragamo is a hoity-toity fancy shoe maker. And this dude was, Grant Cardone's Obsessed book. This dude, did the Obsessed book 150 years ago. Salvador Ferragamo was completely obsessed. Foot fetish, crazy about business, crazy, amazing maker of shoes. And I actually went to his museum in Florence, Italy, and that's how I found out about him. So I like to read the local books when I'm traveling, and there's some amazing people that don't hit the mainstream, New York Times bestsellers.
It's great. Good recommendation. How about your favorite website for success other than your own?
If This Then That.
Oh, I've heard of that one. That's a very good recommendation.
IFTTT.com. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's actually a VA.
That's great. I love it. How about favorite app on your phone?
Facebook. I'm pretty mouthy on Facebook. I pretty much live in Facebook land.
Do you do a lot of business on Facebook?
I really do. I buy and sell houses on Facebook. I meet lots of cool people. I end up, hanging out on podcasts, going on trips with people. A lot of my students come from finding me on Facebook. I love Facebook.
That's great. Great. Favorite quote?
Okay, so my favorite quote is also my favorite Bible verse. and it's Proverbs 31:16. She goes to inspect a field and she buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. So in the South, every woman is crazy with being a Proverbs 31 woman. You know, she's virtuous, she's honored, her husband is honored at the city gates. Like, she's just the main girl we all want to be. And every Bible study I've ever read or checked in on, they totally skip verse 16. And it basically says she's a real estate investor and she creates generational wealth for her future. And to me, it's the best verse in the Bible, best everything. I absolutely love it, and everybody just skips it. So one day I'll go on a tour preaching how to be a Proverbs 31:16 girl.
I love it. I love it. All right, ladies, all you ladies listening, you heard it right here. You know, you need to go into real estate. All right, it's God ordained here.
Exactly. It doesn't say she asks her husband, or she gets her daddy's permission, or she borrows money from her brother. It says she knows her stuff. She goes and buys it, and then she makes a way for her children.
Oh, that's great. I love it. And final question here. If you had to start all over, okay, let's say there's something totally catastrophic that happened, wiped out everything, every asset you hold, everything, even your car, it's gone, okay, and all you have is $1,000 in cash. What would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
I would take $900 and I would put $100 on 9 houses, and I would take $100 and go buy bandit signs and advertise those. And I could probably make 10 grand in a week and then have enough to sell the other 8 houses.
Wow. Just with a bunch of bandit signs, huh? Man, they must be pretty powerful out there.
They are. Those little puppies work day and night.
Wow. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of folks that are listening that want to know more about you, what you do, and everything from your courses to your investments. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
My website is whitneynicely.com. Whitney like Houston, Nicely like nicely done. And there's all sorts of fun stuff there. You can join my Facebook group. You can, book a call with me. I've got a free cheat sheet there. It's a great place to get started if you're new or if you're established and you just want to learn more about lease options and how you can up your cash flow.
I love it. That's great. Great information. Well, we have a tradition here, and I think you know about it, but just as a reminder, we always close off every interview with our guests doing their best old hound dog howl. And I know you're from Tennessee. Come on, I mean, there are hound dogs all over the place. You know how they sound, right, Whitney?
Do you know the story of how Smokey became our mascot?
No. I don't.
So the University of Tennessee back in the 50s in Knoxville, the UTK, they were having a contest to find out, who the new mascot would be. And they'd already narrowed it down that we were going to have a blue tick coonhound because they're native to Tennessee, supposedly. And so they had, 10 dogs, and they were introducing them at halftime. I don't remember what game it was, Mississippi or Mississippi State or something. And they'd bring the dogs out and you'd cheer for your favorite dog or whatever. Well, the last dog they brought out was named Smokey. And when they brought him out and they started introducing him, he barked. And then when they said his name and they walked him to the middle of the field, he started howling, and then the students howled back at him, and it was just back and forth until the crowd went wild, and we picked Smokey, and I think we're down on Smokey 10 now through the line. But that's exactly how we ended up with our mascot. So I think I am going to be pretty good at this.
I think you're going to be really good. Okay, man, I can hardly wait after that story, that build up here. Okay, here we go, Whitney. It's your turn for our closing howl. Oh boy. All right. Well, that second one, that was it. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that was great. Whitney, it has been fantastic having you on here. And I'm really serious. You got me going on auctions now. And I've been on this big auction quest here for the last couple of months. And I just go and look at people buy things. I bid that one time and I didn't even get it. So, I'm going to have you back so you can give me the confidence to be able to actually get out there and buy something. So, You got me all encouraged there.
Bidding on those auctions sometimes is the most fun you can have on a Saturday morning with clothes on.
Okay. I'm not going anywhere with that one. Okay. Well, Whitney, thank you so much for being our guest here and providing this great information. Of course, Old Dog listeners out there, we really appreciate your listening and taking the time today when we know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but just to listen to the show and hopefully learn some great real estate investing information. And please note everything that we've talked about here, including everything that Whitney's talked about, links to her website, the books that she spoke about, anything else that's linkable will be in our show notes. And they're located at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. Just look for the episode with Whitney Nicely. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.